Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy podcast, the original Alien and Predator podcast. This is your host, Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks, and joining me are my fellow consciousnesses trapped inside synthetic bodies that are now starting to have existential crises or be seduced by synthetic daddies. Who knows what's happening, but who are joining me today?
Adam Zeller, aka RidgeTop.
Greg, also known as Still Collating.
Hunter, TheXenoPlays.
And this is episode 220. And we are talking about the third episode of Alien Earth, aka Metamorphosis. So we spoke about the first two episodes last week. We are back to continue talking about the show. We weren't joined last week by Hunter. So what we're going to be trying to do across these review episodes is actually rotate around a bit more of the staff that we have on. So I think next week we're going to be joined by Calum. I think the week after we're going to be joined by Deshande. He's going to join us. He hasn't been on a podcast for many, many fucking years. But we're going to try and rotate around so we can hear about some different thoughts, get some different voices on the show as well. And especially since we've got 8. Since we've got 8 to go through, it's a nice opportunity to hear from a lot of the other staff that you wouldn't normally hear from. So, Hunter, since you weren't here last week, do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown of your impressions of the first 2 episodes before we start talking Metamorphosis?
Sure, I'll keep it a bit short and dirty here, but so I like the first 2 episodes. I think I've expressed what I feel about the first episode on the San Diego Comic-Con roundup earlier this year. But out of the 2 episodes, I'm liking what I'm seeing. I have obvious reservations about some of the choices and dialogue, but overall, I'm liking where Noah Hawley's going. And I'm continuously trying to divorce myself from the notions of what we already know about Alien and let the show breathe and have its own life. And I think in doing so, I'm enjoying it a little bit more than I think most folks because of this. But in terms of, small things like the aliens design, it's a bit awkward at first. Took some time to getting used to. I'm liking it. I'm enjoying the score. I'm enjoying the characters. I'm enjoying the mystery that the show has. And in typical Noah Hawley fashion, I have no idea where the show's going. And I'm here for the ride, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the next 5 episodes after this.
Cool. So we actually missed a few points that Greg especially wanted to talk about from the pilot to pilot. I think of it as a 2-parter, to be honest.
Second half of the pilot, yeah. We can call it like that.
They released him on the same night, so
this is true. So there was just a couple of things, despite us going, 2.5 hours, there were a couple of things that we didn't get around to talking about. So, Greg, where do you want to start us off?
Maybe we can go chronologically with the details that just kind of jumped at us. We haven't discussed the infamous Sid the Sloth, or better yet, the reference to Ice Age 4 Continental Drift. How did you all feel about that kind of unexpected addition to the Alien lore?
Adam?
I learned that Noah Hawley does like crossfades. I wasn't quite familiar enough with his work to realize that initially. And I have been especially enjoying the memes of Sid the Sloth being crossfaded into Wendy's kind of contemplative look there. But yeah, I mean, interesting choice. Ice Age 4 Continental Drift has quite a bit of staying power in the Alien universe, it would seem. But yeah, I mean, it did what it was supposed to there. It was a point of connection between her and her brother, and it communicated that well, I thought. Just a bit, I don't know, bit random. I don't know how popular the sequels were. I haven't seen past 2, I don't think. So it was new to me, but sure, why not?
Go on, Greg.
Well, my view personally about that scene was it was for me very jarring because again we've known about the Peter Pan themes, and I was surprised how, knowing that in advance and the way it was done, it felt relatively understandable in that sense, this is an eccentric trillionaire doing his own thing. So yeah, he'll have some eccentricities. Uh, as far as the purpose of that scene, I completely get it. You want something the brother and sister have been doing in their childhood to connect over, and that makes sense writing wise. That's not a problem. The actors did a very good job portraying that emotional scene. They were doing their best, and it almost gets me through that. The thing is that having which film as a choice for reference, that was what was a bit strange for me. If it was just even like one frame, a little Easter egg behind the somewhere in the background, that would be okay. But the thing that was jarring for me was that in episode 2, you had constantly those quotes and flashbacks to that film. I watched the Ice Age films. The first 3 for me were generally okay. I hated the 4th one. It was so cringy. So to see that kind of addition there was, yeah, it felt a bit random. It felt jarring. It almost kind of broke me out. My suspension of disbelief. Only the performance of the actors there with that scene kind of saved it. But again, I just kind of really dislike that out of all possible kind of films random that you could have put in for them to connect over, if you're already going to use something like that, it was jarring. It was jarring. I personally don't like when an established kind of universe with a specific kind of vibe, especially when it's in the future, some sci-fi then starts randomly using contemporary things, contemporary random media. It's kind of the issue I have with the baseball scene later as well. It's just a lot of contemporary kind of things are being used that I personally could never imagine, like in Alien 3, somebody randomly using something like that. We had some usage of universally, let's say, media with Alien, the Mozart theme,
See,
but that is kind of a classic thing.
that's what I was going to bring up, and
But it's
also
kind of in the background, and it's literally for one scene, and it's something that is kind of evergreen. It's one character, and it just kind of comes and goes. We also have in Alien 3 the convict that sings that
the
song.
song changes between cuts. I can't remember what it is. Yeah,
2525, I think the year 2525, which she kind of transformed it into the year 7575. But it's done as somebody singing their own personal preference there, and it's also quick. You don't even notice what it is. Here it was in your face, and with the crossfades,
I would argue that they are both as prominent as this. So don't get me wrong. So I sit in the middle again. So much of these shows I sit in the middle because I agree that it is contemporary stuff is always weird because it pulls you out of the moment and it dates the media. But as Adam and I were discussing, when Adam brought it up when we were chatting, I'm like, yeah, but we're still 100, nearly 100 years later, we're still watching. Adam, what film did I say?
A Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life, right?
We're still watching A Wonderful Life every Christmas. It's still, it's black and white, or maybe you've got some special color version, whatever. Disney, to go Disney specifically, their oldest cartoons are coming up on 100 years themselves. And we are still, I say we, like we're all parents. People still regularly show their children those classic Disney films. So the idea that in the future these people could be watching films that are going on 100 plus years old is not unrealistic to me. Not in the fucking slightest.
absolutely,
It is.
absolutely.
So it's realistic. It's one of those things where it's like, this is realistic even if it feels fucking weird. And there's a lot of that in media in real world. The amount of things where I've watched a show or read a book or something and gone, there's no way people would do that. There's no way that'd happen. And then actually find myself in similar situations where it happens in work, in professional life and stuff like that. So this sits firmly in that kind of, that kind of area for me. But I still totally understand the point that it pulls you out at the moment, because you go, what the fuck is Ice Age doing in my Alien film, Alien show?
I mean, first of all, it's always a thing to think about when you're wondering, in these fictional universes I like, what do they watch other things that I like in the fictional universe, right? Because it can't just be they have an entirely different thing. Like, there has to be some crossover, right? And it goes beyond that as to like have what historical moments happened in these fictional universe. So with this one, I didn't mind it. I thought it was kind of eased into by seeing this living situation he had where he was sharing this apartment with this family. We see it kind of projected here. So I'm also kind of examining the environment in this scene. And then we kind of go straight from that to the flashbacks with Noah Hawley as the father character and this emotional connection from this moment. So yes, bit of a random movie reference based on the materials we had that Aaron mentioned last episode. I was a bit primed for it, so knew it was coming. But yeah, I didn't mind it. It was interesting. It was kind of weird and random, but a lot of the show is kind of weird and random, and so it worked for me. So
The choice, actually, with it being weird and random, I think adds a bit of charm to it. They could have gone classic. They could have gone Peter Pan. Oh, no, that's too much with the rest of the show. They could have gone some other Disney film. They could have gone some real cultural touchstone, and it become a little bit trite, I think, in that place. This isn't Star Trek where it's Picard going and playing Sherlock. Well, Data, sorry, going and playing Sherlock Holmes. Or stuff like that. Real trite classic music and cultural touchstones. So I appreciate the fact that it's some random fucking sequel to a franchise that, yes, is relatively popular, but it's that far down the line. And I actually think that I like it being this random piece of dialogue from the film, because it makes it feel very Sibling. There's always going to be certain little specific things that resonate with some people more than others, and it becomes, a part of their relationship. So in a lot of ways, this felt like that. But I also still can never get over the fact, like Greg said, it dates it. It feels contemporary, and it's a weird vibe, and that's a lot of what Alien Earth has going on for it, is a weird vibe, that conflicting tones, conflicting feelings, and stuff like that. Hunter, we've not let you get a word in on this one. What were your thoughts on Ice Age?
You're fine. I'm being patient. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts. It's funny. I think what really plays into the Ice Age thing is you were all talking about the contemporary notion of what it has in this universe, and I think it really plays into Noah Hawley's humor. He's got a weird sense of humor, and I think back to his last season of Fargo. There were some weird moments where the humor either hits or it doesn't, and I think part of the nostalgia of the Ice Age scene was, I don't know if he intentionally meant to make it as big of cultural observation for the second episode of, or the first few episodes of Alien Earth, but I think that there's almost a levity of humor there. I think that he's playing a little bit into the meme culture and to that younger audience, and maybe he's not doing it intentionally so, but I think that it's there. I will admit it is jarring. It does take me out of it a little bit, but at the same time, it's now embedded. It's embedded here. It's embedded in Alien, and now we have to kind of either roll with it and laugh with it, or we have to critically observe and go, why? So it's kind of a weird conundrum that we have here.
All great points there. I agree with all of you there, in the sense of, uh, is this like a plausible scene? Of course, absolutely. Like you said, it is realistic that each family will have some random piece of media that they grew up with and like. I think, yeah, the actors save that scene pretty well with the performance. But to me, I am a huge fan of like having a realistic basis for certain genres and films. So is this realistic? Absolutely. But that is the basis. Then you have to go again, this is just my interpretations and my tastes, but I like then to go for a certain film franchise, whatever. Does this fit the tone? Because what is something that is realistic? In this world, we have a lot of diverse and different situations, but what is quote unquote appropriate, which is a personal thing, but appropriate for a genre, that is then different there. I agree with Hunter that, yeah, it almost seems like these kind of comedic moments, they may be done on purpose, but then I just kind of reflect that with Alien Resurrection, when you have people calling it a comedy, a parody, and people looking at that part as a negative element, how things have changed, that now people are, ooh, this is awesome, this fits interesting. There are a lot of people who I've seen discussing on the Discord and forums who like it. So it's kind of very interesting to me to see how the vibes have changed there. I've always
Don't you think
Sorry.
it's a little bit more than that though? Because Resurrection, again, I'm not defending this either one way, just discussing, but Resurrection plays across the entirety of the film as something of a parody and a comedic thing, whereas it's not like the rest of the franchise has never had levity, it's never had comedic moments. We tend to always look at Hudson in Aliens, Alien 3 in itself, fuck that in itself, is very, very comedic. So I don't necessarily think it being funny is a bad thing when you think about Resurrection. I still think Alien Earth is just full of tonal whiplash. Full stop.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
to me, that's part of its charm. Like, it almost feels like alien punk rock a little bit, like
Are we just not ready for Noah Hawley? Are we still too early in the process and don't get Noah Hawley?
I guess we'll find out.
The thing about the tonal whiplash is just that generally, I think you all are right that we've kind of gotten used to how, even though the films have their own specific visions of previous entries, especially the first three, they really do feel like characters can go from one film to another. You can insert them and they fit into the same universe, even though a different story is being told with different themes. In the later entries, yes, so it's not only that the themes are different, but the whole vibe of the Alien universe is changing from director to director. So that is probably something that is strange. I mean, I just want to to say the final thing about these kind of modern media inserts is that I get that we've been having more and more of those things. Like in Prometheus, we had Lawrence of Arabia, which, again, since the film was interesting and David was interesting, that got me to watch Lawrence of Arabia for the first time. But that is something that is a classic, and at the same time, yeah, it's David's quirky kind of thing. And it's referenced not so strongly, no fade-ins or whatever, but yeah. And we have in Covenant that not only John Denver, of course, but we have that shower scene with a modern kind of music playing. So yeah, I think it's something that just it's a reflection of the times that people love putting the references to modern and 20th century media in the sci-fi, which is it's take it or leave it. Some people are fine and some are not so much with it, but it is absolutely different.
If I could say one last thing too, I think it's because we're also getting used to the episodic form that is Alien Earth. And when it comes to that, we have to be ready that we are now going to have new directors per episode that might have different takes than what the showrunner intentionally is going for, and have to fight for their creative, endeavors to be able to showcase stuff like the Ice Age stuff, or even future properties. So, with that being said, we have to embrace that the show can go in so many different ways, with the comedy, with the drama, with all that. So just, we had to be prepared that one director might have a weird take on something that we're used to, and another director might have a more dramatic take on Ice Age, something of that nature. So it could go many ways.
What are your takes on the just the last element in the second episode about the party, the Louis XVI type Baroque entries there?
I wanted to talk about this because this is interesting. I think I heard it from Dana Gonzalez, and it really really resonated with me. It's that the idea this is not implemented, but it's the idea that the upper class are on the highest part of the building having this party that are totally ignorant to what's happening below this crash ship, and the lower class people down there are suffering trying to get out with possible creatures running around, and it's this parasite-esque notion that even in this world of prodigy, they're the upper class, the corporate elites are still there, and they definitely meet their dues when the xenomorph gets free. So I thought that was very interesting because it really showed that there's still a clear dividing line between the people on Earth as there is in space, as we've seen with these blue collar esque truckers in space as we've come to know and love. So I like that theme that's there.
And yeah, Boy Cavalier literally says rescue by income bracket. And I may have made this
I
comparison
missed
last.
that. I missed
Oh
that
yeah,
dialogue. Yeah,
yeah, and I may have made this comparison last episode, but it really kind of made me think of the movie High Rise, which is an adaptation of the
you
book.
did. You brought up
Yeah,
Snowpiercer as well.
again, definitely recommend that. Very like weird dystopian class focused sci-fi, but also kind of surreal feeling. I don't think Earth gets to quite that level of feeling surreal, but the whole tower idea in particular I think was really well portrayed in High Rise. So it was when we read some of the early stuff, Aaron, it was one of the first things I thought about.
It was a lot more prominent in the scripts that we have. It is very prominent, this clear divide, with the idea of when they're in the bottom, you really can see that it looks like a poverty-stricken thing where it's like 4 families living in one apartment complex and stuff like this. But it just does not translate to what we see in the first 2 episodes.
Which I think is good. I think sometimes Alien could be more, again, like effective with being kind of subtle on that. There's a lot of dystopian sci-fi that's very blunt with that sort of thing.
Which is
It's
something you don't like at the minute, though, isn't it? You don't like Alien being
no,
too dystopian.
I mean, in the context of Alien, it depends. Like based on, not to get too lost in the weeds here, but in Alien Romulus, when Fede kind of explained to us what he was going for with this colony, and like different cities have different levels of decay sometimes, like I really kind of was like, okay, you make a really good point here. But yeah, there's some sci-fi that gets almost like dystopian to an extreme, and the Alien universe has always felt a bit more relatable, where it's like, yeah, the corporations are screwing everybody, but it's not too far from where we are now to kind of reflect where we are now, and maybe we've become used to it or something like that.
I have to admit that so I got through the Sid the Sloth fade out, fade in and fade out scenes, etc. The actors pulled me through there, but I was on the verge of like just being taken out. This scene with them is what honestly broke me in the sense of like not enjoying the episode 2 overall, like seeing more negative than positive things about that episode. And I completely get like the emphasis on the class structure there. That makes complete sense. I was just very, very, very taken aback by the stylistic choice, and just like it seemed like a parody, a caricature at that moment. Like if you want to portray the bourgeois, the top class having parties, etc., like it's not impossible. It's just not very plausible and realistic. Rich people, they either in normal attire or their suits or whatever, or if they're going with something extravagant, they're going with something that other shows and films do show, some extravagant avant-garde type suits, but like a specific baroque Louis the 16th, everybody dresses there in makeup. For me, that just
The
doesn't
only
feel for the Alien vibe.
Rich people can also have strange rituals, though, in terms of how they party and that sort of thing.
the simpler thing is, it was a costume party.
Of course, but again, if we're like trying to portray something, it doesn't feel
I'm
very alien, and yeah,
I
it's
don't
not
disagree.
impossible.
Yeah.
It's not impossible that it's a specific themed masquerade.
No.
Though Noah Hawley in the behind the scenes, he says, like, in a general term, these and he has the division: humanity prime, humanity plus, and humanity minus. He keeps on talking about that.
So Casper Casper in the comments says, "I'm poor and I have strange rituals," which is yes,
Absolutely.
we all do. So this character, his name is actually Lordship. His Lordship is what he is in the script, and I think they've referred to him as such in some of the behind the scenes stuff that they've talked about on the official podcast. I don't disagree with you, Greg. It does feel like it's bordering on parody, especially since the show doesn't make a point of being like, oh, we also want to address the whole classism thing that's going off. You know, it's quite a problem is the division between the haves and the have-nots, and the so many percent of the wealth of the world living in, you know, the minorities' bank account and stuff like that, without it being the show being clear that it wants to talk about this. You get to that moment and you go, what the fuck is this? And I get that, and it's again, maybe it's one of those things where we're talking about the show before it actually gets to say, yeah, we're going to play with this. We haven't done it yet, but we're going to, and this is going to, you know, tie in. But as it stands, I don't disagree with people who found that weird and pulling them out.
I think for me it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand it's a great set piece, and it has
Absolutely.
and it has a great introduction to the Xenomorph when it unfolds off that statue. So I think the shock factor is there, and it's successful in that, right? But I can't agree with you. It's very jarring. It feels like a parody. So on one hand, I love the execution and what's happening, but on the other hand, I feel that it's really misplaced. And out of the 3 episodes, 2 is definitely the weakest link so far for me.
I agree that the themes, the ideas for those impactful scenes are great. It's just those strange specific decisions, like why exactly was it Ice Age 4? Why exactly do we have a rich person in Baroque outfit? Like, love the scene, I want to see the rich people get their thing from the alien. Perfect. They're arrogant. They don't know what's happening around. But I can't then see it as something like it seems less realistic and relatable in that sense. It doesn't seem like the rich folk we see all the time.
That's fair.
It gets me out. So yeah, that's it.
One thing, so we'll move on, but let's be honest, it's very much giving the show its own identity. You know, it very much stands apart and goes back to that classic thing that we all used to like about the original 4 films was, you know, different styles, different directors, different interpretations of the franchise, different identities. And this is very much has its own identity. And I can at least respect that. But let's go talk about episode 3 then. So, Adam, do you want to lead us off on this one, buddy? What did you think? Short, dirty.
Yeah, this was probably my favorite episode yet, I would say. This is where, as the title Metamorphosis would suggest, we really see some stuff kind of start to be put in motion. I mean, the show is still taking its time and building here, but we can see some characters changing, having moments where they're questioning themselves, questioning their situation, and things are definitely, you can start to get a sense that there's some negative things building and that it may all end up exploding in Prodigy's face on this island. And they get back to the island in this episode. They finish up their task on the crashed spaceship. It's a great scene where Kirsch runs into Morrow, and I think Kirsch is another great source of humor for this series, is just his snark, I guess. Which is, again, kind of uncommon for synthetic in the alien universe to have this degree of it. But I mean, maybe with the exception of David, I don't know. But regardless, I thought this episode was really solid. I would say it was the highest one yet for me. I'm still on board, very intrigued to see where things go. I believe, was this the first episode by Um,
Dana Gonzalez.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the first two were by Hawley, right?
Yeah. And
Okay.
this was also the first that was written, had another name on the written credit as well,
Okay.
which was Rob De Laurentiis, I believe, for this
Okay.
one.
Yeah, and we got to see more of the Xenomorph action in this one. That was kind of a wild scene as well. So yeah, and we get to know the Lost Boys a bit more in this episode, I would say also. So yeah, all around, I thought it was a really solid episode, my favorite so far, and it only helped to pull me in deeper into seeing where this all goes.
Greg?
So, with the first episode, I wasn't sure did I like it more or dislike it more. With the second, I kind of fell more on the dislike wagon. But for this episode, like Adam said, this is my favorite one to date, and this is the first episode where I can absolutely say there are more things I like than dislike, and I finally have excitement for next week, episode 4, to see what's going to happen next. So uh, I'm very glad at how it unfolded. We get a lot of characterization, which is something that generally that's what I wanted from an alien show. Just delving deeper into these characters and into this world, how it's set up. Morrow is fantastic. We'll talk more about him probably. Kirsch is also not bad. I keep on getting surprised that I don't despise, in the sense of I don't find him extremely cringe. The boy Cavalier, the actor's doing a great job there. Um, Nibs has interesting moments. Curly has interesting moments. Uh, Generally, a much stronger script performance, dialogue. It's not all super cringy for me anymore, so yay. The alien fight has some interesting scenes, some strange other things, but other than that, I like most of the episodes, so hell yeah, finally.
Hunter?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you both here. It's my favorite episode to date. I found that there was a lot of intriguing moments, a lot of callbacks to certain themes that I've enjoyed in the last few films and adaptations, especially the theme of violation and not coming from the creature itself, but by the Lost Boys. I thought that there's some very Philip K. Dick moments of really understanding the characters and them coming to terms with what they are and what it means to be human and synthetic and cyborg and so forth and so on. So I thought there was a lot to unpack there, and I'm continuously loving what they're doing with the character Morrow and Kirsch. Those two characters are fascinating to me, and especially the moment between Morrow and the Lost Boys with the eggs. So again, yeah, Greg, I'll have to echo you. Hell yeah, I'm on board. This was my favorite to date.
Not to be a broken record, but yes, I likewise think this was significantly better than 1 and 2. Easily my favorite. Not to say I don't have issues with it. Again, I'm still not entirely on board with the alien at the start. Equal measures. Oh, that's cool in equal measures. Oh, that's fucking stupid. But once we get rid of the alien for this episode, I think it was very strong. You know, all the characters, all the Lost Boys. Thoughts on the hybrid angle aside now, I really enjoyed seeing them sort of break out of this homogenous blob of children that have been put in synth bodies, because they are starting to become very distinct from each other, and distinct in interesting ways. You know, I like that we've got, I can't remember the girl's name, the one that has the talk with boy
Curly.
Curly. I like where they're going with Curly and her stepping up and challenging the favoritism and having her own ambitions there with Boy, and Boy's reaction to her as well. Because I think Boy is looking for people to push back on him. I think he's actually looking for challenges and boundaries, and that Curly would step up and go, "You're wrong." I think is not him. I didn't take it as him going, "You fucking bitch." I took it as, okay, somebody's got some backbone, which I think is that what he says in this episode? Does he challenge
So
Arthur?
to Arthur, he says
Yes.
grow a
Yeah.
spine because he enters the room right when Arthur was saying it was irresponsible for
Yeah.
him to do this
And
whole operation.
he refuses to challenge him. And that's also where I think he has an interesting sort of relationship with Dame Sylvia, because I think she has kind of like a maternal thing, but she is again reverential towards his money rather than him as a person, that kind of thing. So I think he is looking. It's probably might be a little bit of a stereotypical thing, but by all accounts, it seems like his parents were killed in some sort of event.
Yes.
So perhaps it is that stereotype where he himself is like the kids anyway, because he never grew up in terms of maturity, emotionally maturity. So
Well, I think that harkens back to the second episode where he's like, I just want to have an interesting fucking conversation. And even though the conversation with Curly is not at that level, it's starting to pique his interest.
it's not at that level intellectually, I would say, but perhaps it is in terms of, again, boundaries and conflict and somebody actually telling him no rather than cowering before, the
Yep.
might of his wallet and the might of his intellect and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interesting details revealed about Boy Cavalier there. In this very episode, in the kind of text logs when Morrow is looking through things. So as Aaron said, it seems that some of his parents, if not all of some of his guardian relatives, whatever, have died, and in that kind of a news report, it says that's what kind of sparked his ambition and further to enhancing synthetics. So. As the report at least goes, he created new and better synthetics than whatever, however they were at the time. So that is an interesting piece of law. They are sticking with the fact that he actually is a genius, which is a kind of old tired trope, but it's common with Peter Wayland, Charles Bishop Wayland, etc. So that's
I
just normal for the universe.
While I found Adam's sort of question interesting last time of is Boy genuinely a genius or not, especially considering where we've come with it turning out Elon's not a fucking genius. I thought it was an interesting sort of question from Adam in taking it that route. But by all accounts, a lot of this coinciding with the behavior of people like Elon and the behavior of people like Trump and that has become very coincidental. So I do think he is going to be legitimately intelligent.
We do see a moment where he talks to Kirsch and he's like, assume I've watched everything on the operation. So it would seem he at least has a very photographic memory, I would say, and can just consume a lot of information very quickly. So yeah, I am curious to see more of that because I think you're right. I think it's there, but maybe he just doesn't really need to use it too much these days, and that's kind of what he's yearning for as well. And this whole
Yeah.
situation, that's why it's so appealing to him, because he's like,
Something
$1 trillion
different.
of R&D
Something
just fell in our
challenging.
lap. And Kirsch kind of challenges him on that too, like, oh, so is it worth it, dropping the thing we've been spending 10 years for the shiny new thing that just fell in our lap? And I thought that was kind of an interesting conversation there too.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the idea that he would be so intellectually bored and so excited over this entirely unknown thing is something I can really believe. Even if it does also seem a bit hypocritical, like what Sarah said in the comments. Did anybody else pick up on it's not about the money suddenly becomes it's $1 trillion of weapons R&D? I genuinely don't think it is about the money for him. I really do think he is that intellectually bored, and this is something interesting for him to play with.
The actor in the behind the scenes in the podcast episodes, the official ones by FX, it reveals so much, like Morrow's motivations and backstory. Some interviews we can get to that later, but Samuel Blanken talks about his character there, and he kind of reveals that it seems that Boy, he loves the danger. He loves being on the edge, just pushing the boundaries and seeing, will this have great results or will it fail? It seems that whatever the result is, he's just, it almost seems like it's an adrenaline seeking thing. Yeah, like people say, he's bored. He's like really bored. So, ooh, we have this new shiny toy. which helps with his boredom already of the hybrids, but also this is dangerous alien life forms that I don't understand and that is the property of another company. Ooh, so what dangers will come out of this? It seems like that is the angle he's going for. And he says about Curly that even though Boy maybe not convinced that she can reach that level, he likes to give her the ammunition to think that maybe she could. Even if she doesn't get to his level, he would love to see her fail as well. So whatever it is, he wants to see that kind of extreme case. He likes being on the edge and pushing things to their very maximum.
Sarah brought up another interesting point. Boy Cavalier also said that only children are geniuses because they have imagination. So if he's aging out of genius, is that why he's chosen a child's mind to work with so he can keep mining it? Yes, I had the exact same thoughts. I think that the hybrid process does work with adults, and this is a very deliberate choice on his part to maintain some level of exclusivity to their child imagination, because it brings up the whole concept brings up another interesting question. I was talking to Chevy about it actually when he was like, I don't know if I like this direction or whatever. I don't know if I like the morals behind it. And I was sort of speaking out loud and I said, so even if they are genuine human minds and consciousnesses in these bodies, can they actually mature? Can they grow? Or are they going to become stunted in their development and retain this childlike way of thinking, this childlike way of seeing the world, despite them potentially being 50 years old at some point? Are they still mentally going to be stuck as 12-year-olds? So from that direction, it's kind of interesting, because if it is a tool for him to then become this very Elon figure where he's ripping off other people's concepts and ideas and intelligence, is that him jamming that about?
Is one of the things I was wondering about when I first heard of the concepts of the show is this going to be like a ghost in the shell type thing where they will maintain their biological brain in this new body and that will still be able to mature? But it seems no, this is a complete consciousness digital transfer akin to something like Chappie is what it reminded me of. And Boy Cavalier mentions I've given her a supercomputer for a brain. And then Dame and Kirsch also say we're trying to simulate adolescence for you so the transition isn't so abrupt, which is an interesting thing. And I think it will come into play a bit more. From a tech perspective in the Alien universe, it is like, how the hell did they do that kind of a question? Because I did figure in like AvP2, this is deep cut EU, but with Dr. Eisenberg, that it was more of that ghost in the shell type process, that they were literally saving his brain and putting it in a synthetic body, is what I figured in that case.
We also forgot, whenever we bring this up, we've also forgot to talk about Bishop, Alien's Bishop, because that was the whole point of what Michael was doing, was developing a computer that was powerful enough to actually have a consciousness uploaded to it. That was his end game in that, and we completely always forget to mention
That's
that.
right. That's right. Yep.
Well, it's done a bit different in that novel. It's based a lot more on contemporary tech ideas, which we will see how Earth develops this further, because there are hints that maybe they're going this direction. But in Alien's Bishop, the body died in the sense he was in the hive. The thing is that he just, and it's not even uploading. He has been simulating and
It
copying his
copied it,
mind.
yes.
Yes.
It's slightly
So
different.
yeah, when his body was screwed over by his batshit crazy plan about imitating the queen with the pheromone things, he had this backup already ready to go. So technically, that is a bit more plausible, and also in the timeline where it is at. Okay, this here is now stretching things, and it brings up a billion other questions like why that tech hasn't been used since. Of course, we shall see. If everything goes to pot
Well,
with Prodigy, it can be salvaged.
we know why it hasn't. This is its own continuity and doesn't give a shit about Alien
Of course.
after after that.
Of course.
So I think that's something else that we as fans probably need to just try and remember. Just ignore everything past Alien. Maybe aliens will factor into it. Who knows?
We don't need to understand all the tech of Alien. Alien has FTL drives. We don't know exactly how those work. They've never gone into that, like maybe Star Trek has or something like that.
Well, there's just to go on that. There's been different interpretations of FTL across the entire lore and fandom. I remember it being, was it Einstein drives in Steve Perry's original novelizations? I think that's what he calls it in
I
Nightmare
think so.
Asylum. Yeah,
Yeah,
where if
I
you
think
stay
so.
out of cryo while it's in Einstein space or whatever, you start to go insane and all that kind
so
of
it's like
stuff.
that movie Supernova. Yeah, that's.
And that is a film I've not watched for a long time. That was James Spader, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hunter, how do you feel about all that kind of stuff?
I'll start with the basis of what we were speaking about and going back to the genius comment. I think it was on Greg, like you mentioned. I've been listening to a lot of the podcasts and different interviews, and there is a moment where it said that Boy Cavalier is a genius, but he makes really stupid decisions. And there's a comment, I believe, in this last episode where it's like, for someone who's smart, you're sure making a stupid decision or asking a stupid question. I can't remember what the exact line is, but it just
That's Curly,
harkens
isn't
back
it?
to. Pardon me.
Wasn't that Curly?
That was
Thinking
Curly.
of-
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the initial beginning of their conversation. But going back to that, I think it's like he is a genius, but I think he's making stupid decisions, and he's thinking more in the moment rather than overall. So with that on top of that, but I think, from knowing the background that I do, I know that sometimes if you get into the weeds of things like the alien tech, you can lose the audience. And I think that Noah Hawley is disregarding a lot of information and information out there regarding the alien universe and going, this just makes sense because it's here and it would make sense in this universe. So I know that from talking to people that have written adaptations or episodes for specific shows and movies, that they will go, no one's going to care. I'm going to care. So in that sense, I don't know if Holly's generally going that direction, but I could see it. If I was told that, it would make sense to me. But yeah.
Do we want to start at the beginning with the episode with
Well,
the fight or
let's
with other
stick
things?
on characters while we're talking characters.
Okay.
I absolutely fucking love Morrow in this. He is not quite as villainous as I think we are led to believe. He seems in this to be very sort of challenged by his actions and his circumstances. When we see him in the first episode, you assume he's a dick. He ties those Prodigy tactical response unit people up. He shoots, he shoots Hermit with his laser taser. But it's all non-lethal. Yes, there's ticks in there, and they go and get those people, but Morrow doesn't know that they're loose at that point. I think he is really struggling with his humanity, and it's really fucking interesting. The entire point of when is a machine not a machine is him, I think, being concerned he is losing his humanity and becoming a machine.
And
And
it's such a great quotable line from the series as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Again, all towards this series having its own very clear identity. And I actually find it really interesting. Like his entire motivation, is everything I have is gone. This is literally all I have left now. For my entire existence, my entire career, this is all that's left of it, and I'm gonna fucking succeed at it. And I'm pulled to him in an interesting way that I was surprised by. And we're going to do an episode on this in a few months. Adam and I are going to be. and it's how our relationship with the franchise changes as we grow older. The things that appeal to us, the things that resonate with us, how that's changed as our lives have changed. So a big thing for me was I found myself becoming very pulled to Hicks and Dallas as I progressed in my career, in that I was getting responsibilities that I wasn't necessarily prepared for, didn't necessarily want at that time, and all that kind of stuff. Without going too deep into, my boring life outside of cool sci-fi monsters, I'm at a point in my career now where I've watched my entire career unravel in front of me, and everything I have done has become pointless. All the technological improvements that I've implemented, or procedures I've implemented, workflows I've implemented, it's all just unraveled in front of me. This last year, my entire career, everything I've achieved in my career has just unraveled in front of me, and I can't do anything about it. So when Morrow started saying that, I was like, yeah, okay. There's a little bit more to this story as well, because my current team that I'm in, I made a comment where I was like, oh, it's just my workplace being my workplace, i.e. being fucking stupid. And somebody said to me, for somebody who doesn't like it there, you seem to spend a lot of time there. And I said to them, it's because I don't want the last 10 years of my life to have been for nothing. So when Morrow was saying this, I was like, okay, I know you're supposed to be ostensibly the villain, at least at this point of this story, but I see you, my brother, and I am very, very on your side here.
It's a
And
very human thing to have invested so much in something. I mean, interpersonal relationships as well, that have maybe gone on a bit too long and are not at a place where they were when they started. But at this point, you've come too far and you must go on. So I thought it was interesting to get to know more of Morrow in this one. Beyond just his conversations with Smee and Slightly, which was a really interesting scene, and Kirsch kind of has to come in there to rescue them. But his conversation with Yutani, where he I guess knew her grandmother. Now she's in charge of the company. It does beg the question why he wouldn't know that if he knew how long they were traveling. That Yutani wouldn't still be alive, the Yutani he knew at least. But it was an interesting scene watching him escape the spaceship, getting into New Siam and kind of going in the streets, laying low. But also, Yutani was like, "You should come home. We will debrief you." And he's like, "No, I'm going to get them back." And so he's very determined. And like you said, Aaron, he's very much like, "This is just my life now. Is acquiring this for you."
Casper brings up in the chat, the sunk cost fallacy. And Steve Patterson says Morrow is very much the anti-hero. I love this character. Sorry, Greg, go ahead.
I completely agree with both of you there. Morrow, for now, is the absolute standout character. Some of the other characters, and especially the actors that are trying to push that performance through the writing, they're doing a really good job. We shall see how that develops. I have a few that I'm liking more and more, but Morrow, even through that, is an absolute standout, and especially in this episode, the actor does a phenomenal job with him. As others said, yes, he is relatable in that kind of motivation. All of us, I think, have in some aspect of our lives encountered that sunken cost fallacy, in the sense of, should I continue this or should I change? Have I gone in too deep to back up now? It's an extremely relatable human thing, and the way it's set up through this sci-fi universe, through this situation of losing 65 years for the job, and when Yutani says, you should have read your contract better, he's like, I'm not complaining. I know what I got into. I'm just saying I have nothing else. I have to do this. As As Sarah says here, for me, it's not clear yet if he chose to do the mission, which meant he lost everything, or he had no choice for some reason. The actor has been revealing a lot of Morrow's backstory in written and recorded interviews. And I think he has done that because, if I remember correctly, he said that it won't be revealed in the show. So this is just for us, like, to know and have the backstory. He said that he came from a poor background, like from the streets, etc., and he was taken in by the company, basically. And so and especially he, at a young age, had a kind of I don't know if it's a parental relationship or whatever, but with the grandma Yutani. So he had a very strong connection there, and he felt an extreme kind of loyalty. And he also imagines that those cyborg implants, that they're extremely expensive. So he has to kind of make sure that he's worth the investment they're putting into him. So he just feels like he has to constantly prove himself, and it's like personal pressure he's putting on himself, and nobody else is. And another detail he has mentioned is the fact about the daughter, which is mentioned in the episode a little bit, but he explains that furthermore. He says that the daughter died during the trip, which means that they're certainly getting somehow that information back to the Maginaut. But it seems that he has found that out during the trip, and he was kind of expecting that at the end of the trip he will see an 80-year-old version of his daughter and at least be able to have some connection there. But that just gone. That just isn't available to him. So that's why he has lost everything. And his mission wasn't completely successful. It didn't land where it should have. So he's like, no, I gotta salvage this as best as I can. So seeing that, the, I mean, the premise is simplistic on paper, and with maybe different actor, it wouldn't have been pulled off so well. But I'm hoping I pronounced this correctly. Babou Ceesay?
I think that's right.
Sorry if I butcher the name, but giving that nuance in that performance, the voice, the facial expressions, the changing from being intimidating to being curious to being manipulative. Again, his performance is on the level of the peak performances in the other previous Alien films. He has definitely gone to that level. When an actor does such a good job, I know that I wanna see them in different roles because he has been such a standout. I will definitely watch other shows and films he has been in. So I am so glad that at least this character, for now, already in episode 3, is really picking my motivation. So even if everything else in later episodes turns out to be not satisfying for me, I will keep on going just to see what happens with Morrow. If this is the performance just by the 3rd episode, I can't wait to see what he does next.
Yeah, I don't want to be a broken record. I think everything you're saying, everything everyone has said is exact. I think what was interesting to me was there was a moment in the episode where he does talk about his daughter, right, Greg? And there's that moment where he's telling the Lost Boys about this bedtime scary story about this monster. But the story is not a bedtime story. It's real. These things are real. They're apparent. They're in the universe. And that was a real eye-opening moment for me when he's communicating with Mother that, oh, he's trying to almost dissect these kids' mindset into knowing who they are and what they are. But also he's like, if once he understands their kids coming from being a previous parental figure, he's like, let me tell you a story about something that's here. It's apparent. And it is a story that is real. So I thought that was very interesting for him as a character, that he's playing both sides, and he's the most realistic in the situation.
Yeah, and while he's talking to those kids, he's downloading the data off of the ship, erasing it there. I believe Kirsch already got it for Prodigy. But yeah, I mean, so much of the episode is really focused on Morrow. And during that scene, he plants kind of a bug device on one of the Lost Boys. And he comes to him later where only he can kind of hear him through this bug, which like sinks into his synthetic skin. It was interesting. And he is essentially trying to gain his trust later on in the episode so that he can, because it's like this is his connection on the inside, this is how he's going to infiltrate eventually, we assume. So yeah, again, Morrow, standout performance here from Babou Ceesay, and Just a really intriguing character development on Marrow's side of things.
And as Steve Patterson says here, I especially love the scene where Morrow is being paternal and manipulative to Slightly. I find it very dark. And Sarah brings up that age-old quote of nobody is a villain in their own story. If Grandma Yutani was all about medical application of the species, maybe what his daughter died of, then it could have been a huge driver. I agree. I love him. I can't wait to see more of him. He's fantastic. Easily a standout. I like where this episode also went with the kids. I think I started to say that before I dived us off the deep end already when I was talking about my impressions. But I love that the Lost Boys are now all starting to become quite individualistic. Curly and I can't remember the other guy's name. Going the scientific route. Curly more so Toodles. Curly more so to sort of challenge Boy. But Toodles had said all along he was interested in the sciences and stuff. So to see them then become so interested in the creatures, we have Ginger One.
Nibs.
I never watched. Well, no, I have watched Peter Pan, but I don't have very good memories of it. So I have no fucking idea who all the Lost Boys are. I'm not gonna lie. But to see Nibs then become so traumatized by her experiences is again showing the kids kind of aspect of it in a darker way. Whereas with Smee and Slightly, we then get this very fraternal. Is that the brother?
Yes.
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 This very fraternal sort of aspect to them, where they're very much being children, but in that way where they are very sort of affectionate towards each other, and the way they distract each other and stuff like that. And then, yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I actually like them pulling the focus off of Wendy and Hermit. I still think Hermit's a bit of a non-presence in the show so far. So I'm quite keen to see if they actually do something interesting with him as we go on, because I don't think, and it's nothing against Alex Lawther, I just don't think the character's really got much of a presence at this point.
Yeah, between Smee and Slightly, there was definitely that moment there where one is comforting the other after everything they had been to, and it's interesting. Kirsch is kind of watching them. Adam Ines comes in and gives them some odd questioning. And yeah, Nibs, you can get the sense that she's kind of losing it a little bit here. Like she went through something traumatic on the ship, and maybe it was a catalyst for her really thinking about her new life, her new identity, and maybe not liking everything there. You see this kind of eerie scene where she's looking in the mirror and she starts like touching her own eyeball
Did you get Prometheus vibes there?
I mean, yeah, a little bit maybe.
Anybody else have any thoughts on the Lost Boys?
Yeah, I thought there was this really interesting overarching theme in this episode specifically, which yes, you could argue there it's mostly about like what does it mean to be synthetic human, but also there's a theme of violation, which has always been a favorite theme of mine in the Alien universe, whether it be the facehuggers, the chest bursters, but in this case there's that moment with Slightly and Smee where they're being told that no, you're being recorded through your eyes. And for Nibs, it's when am I ever going to go home? When am I ever going to be human, really human again? And violation comes in many forms. And in this episode particularly, it's being told, well, you're being recorded through your eyes. You are property. So I think it was a nice twist to go, it's not the monsters that are concerning you. It's the corporate entity that's saying you are our property and you are being used to facilitate different endeavors.
Which has always been a theme of Alien as well, you know. It's easy to say that man is the monster, but I think it always goes a bit more specific into corporationism, of course, because of Alien. I guess it tries to do it in Resurrection with it being the military government government entity instead, but you know that's always been a thing, and I do actually really appreciate it still being in here, because I think the prequels kind of lost it. You know, the prequels lost that angle, and I think it is always going to be a prescient thing that people should be able to identify with. Gone are the days of the 60s where it's this idyllic, you go to work, you work hard, you do a good job for your boss, and you will have a good life. You'll care for your family, and everything will be well.
Those days are seemingly gone. But yeah, no, that topic is was at the forefront of Romulus and is at the forefront of this show, and so I think it's a very relatable element for a lot of people.
I think Romulus was a little different in terms of it not being so much. I mean, obviously there was exploitation in there with the way that Rain's contract was doubled, but a thing I always liked about Romulus, just to go off the side a little bit here, is it wasn't just about that. It was about unluckiness. You are born in a class, you are born in circumstances. You have no choice in that whatsoever, and that is life and circumstance and luck fucking you over, not just so much the corporation fucking you over. And that is a reason I actually really fucking love that film, because I love that angle of those characters. I somehow ended up I'm not going to pretend that I was born into poverty or anything, but I fell into doing similar things to my parents because of their circumstances and that kind of stuff. So it was something I was like, yeah, okay. Again, I hear you, Fede. I hear you, Tyler. I'm on board with that. I fucking love that film.
I think we get a little bit of that with Hermit trying to pursue this better life because he did get a scholarship on Mars. And now he's pretty much begging this robot, like, please, this is the one chance I have here to do something with my life. And so I do think maybe his character will come a bit more into play and we'll learn more about him. But yeah, Wendy and Hermit took a bit more of a back seat in this episode, other than one very significant scene where they both get seriously injured and they're kind of out for the rest of the episode until the very end where Wendy gets back up. But yeah, what did we think of this scene where the Wendy has her fight with the Xenomorph? That was kind of a bit obscured, I would say, near the end of the fight. There's some interesting moments where it's kind of a cat and mouse thing where the Xenomorph, which has been very much taking its time with him in almost every encounter compared to everyone else it runs into, that it kind of tears to shreds in seconds. But he yells out that this is a trap. He's been hived up in this big cargo container. She goes in there. The alien starts to come in and then kind of leaves and gets on top of the roof. And she stabs it with her sword. It gets very angry.
Excuse me. It's not a sword.
Sorry. Paper cutter.
There we go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
better.
Make it sound as silly as it is.
Samurai sword. And it flips this whole massive cargo container. Like, it almost felt like a T-Rex there for a second. But yeah, what did you guys think of that scene?
Yeah. It's good that that was.
I feel like that sums it up straight away there, Greg, off of, yeah.
It's good that that scene was at the start. Again, it's kind of tailing off of episode 2 with its controversial moments there, and the rest of the episode has better elements. But there is so much to dissect there. First, just a quick thing about Hermit and his character. Yeah, I thought that in episode 1 he was kind of bland, flat in that sense. The actor is phenomenal. I've seen him in other things. I love him, but I don't know if he was struggling with the accent or just the writing and the slow-mo moments he had in the first episode. But in the second episode, he gets more moments when he acts with fear. You can see it in his eyes. That was nice. The baseball scene, even though I found it a bit cringe, his eyes does a lot of the acting. But here, now he is the victim again, and this is like the third or fourth encounter he has with the creature. His plot armor is absolutely huge. I will not say that plot armor has not been a factor in the other films. It has been a factor from like Alien and Aliens, which I also find to be like actual faults in those films. But there, at least, it's kind of short. It's one time. Here, again and again and again, we have the kind of issue that the creature, whenever it's taking the red shirts, the fodder characters, they just get snapped. They get shredded. Like people have been calling this creature the chainsaw, etc. Yes, for other creatures it is, but whenever it's with Hermit, it only stalks Hermit. It only does the blending in when it's near Hermit. And when it's supposed to get Hermit, it has been up to Hermit's face like twice or 3 times now, with getting ready the head bite and then saved in the last moment. Even in the interviews between the characters, they're joking about how many times he's been saved. That's how noticeable it's become. So it's not like a huge, the worst thing ever, but it's getting kind of, it's breaking you out of the immersion. Again, in Aliens, there are those plot armor moments where it almost gets you, but it's shorter there. It's one time. But that doesn't mean you're supposed to repeat some of those faults. So, okay, we have Hermit, the ultimate, as Sarah says, Hermit, the ultimate final girl, basically. But the first issue I have there with him is that he says it's a trap. How the hell would he know it's a trap? How does he know what the alien is thinking and what's the situation for, etc.? That's a bit kind of a leap in logic, but okay, whatever. I like the look of the cocoon thing. It has a nice texture and color, so that's good. One of the few creature effects I actually kind of like. But then we have the creature comes and it's talking you from the kind of profile. Oh, that angle, the lips don't connect with anything. The overbite, God, the suit. I really don't like the suit. But then it has one shot where it's just straight at the creature, and it looks like it's kind of posing and smiling almost. That is the only shot of the creature I actually liked. It's still lit up too much. It's one of the things that I'm very confused about with the use of the creature is that it's obvious that whenever there's an action scene, they don't show the alien. They don't have the budget or choreography or whatever to show what's happening, which is totally fine. Showing less is more, how they say, yeah. But then when it comes to the creature's suit, they just showed fully in full light. They showed the dead suit, the living just standing there in full light, not even obscured in shadow. So it's like, why are we doing this only to half an extent? If we're already obscuring the creature in action, and sometimes when it's blending in with things obscuring it in shadow, why not do it fully? And then just have random shots where it just fully lit and the guy in the suit. So it's very strange direction-wise. But yeah, the creature kind of tries to back off from Wendy. Does it? And okay, we think it is going to do something intelligent. It just goes up, makes a bunch of noise, waits there, and then okay, yeah, Wendy has a quick thinking and stabs it. Hermit has quick thinking. Yeah, it's acid moving out of the way. That's completely fine. That's okay. The alien shows great strength in moving that container, and the acid melts through the hole of the side. Yeah, the creature is isolation, alien isolation levels of unpredictability completely, Sarah. Yeah. And the acid has power in that specific scene where it gets a giant hole through that wall, but that's
that
so
was-
inconsistent later.
That was something that I found a little bit eye-rolly about the depiction of the alien so far in this.
Yeah.
It is that age-old. The acid blood only ever does what the plot wants it to do, and then you have things like it steaming still later on after it's dead. And I'm like, I guess we're just not like an alien at all in this either. Aliens at all in this either. You know, it's supposed to oxidize after death.
And they have an acid-proof tray for it that they're carrying it around in a forklift on after it gets killed. But yeah, I feel like with Hermit, yeah, it got to a point where I'm like, is there something special about him in particular where the alien is kind of taking its time now? I feel like I'm on an island in the terms of the design. I'm really enjoying it. It's nice to see a bit more of the alien. I do feel like we still get those moments in shadow, like in the earlier episodes where it was creeping out of the hole in the ceiling, or when it was kind of disguised in the environment. We saw like its tail move out of the way, which I had to like do a second take on. And in the dinner scene, I didn't notice it the first time running up top on the balcony. I thought that was really cool. So I personally think, and I know a lot of people do not share my opinion here, I think Weta killed it with the design. I find it very interesting, still biomechanical. Yes, it was a bit jarring seeing the position of like where the dome starts in the mouth or whatever. I'm used to it at this point. It doesn't really bother me. And I think overall, to me anyway, it's a solid design. One of the things that got me a little frustrated with Romulus is Legacy made this awesome Xenomorph, but I felt like we just didn't see it enough in that. And yes, there are some scenes where we can kind of see the Xenomorph, but we're still in kind of a bit of a dimly lit parking garage here. So to me, I feel like they're doing it in an effective way for me, but I can definitely understand why some fans would have issue with the Xenomorph in this one.
I
To me, it
think it
just seems
was.
a bit. Sorry.
I think this is the best it's looked. The best it's been shot so far.
Yeah.
You know, the silhouetted scenes where it's against the tarpaulin, whatever you fucking call the shit that's coming down the trailer. The silhouetted shots are gorgeous. When it comes through, there are some very nice visuals of it there, where the buck tooth isn't quite so prominent, the lips aren't quite so prominent, and I think that's the best it's looked.
Well, it's funny. I'm not going to get too nerdy here for a second, but what's interesting about the decisions between Romulus and Earth is these adaptations were shot anamorphic, which I'm not going to get too much into, but anamorphic gives features to people and creatures to have. It really accentuates the face. It really accentuates features of the face. And in this particular instance, I think with the Xenomorph, I'm not 100% loving it, but I've come around to it where I enjoy it more. And in this particular case with the Xenomorph, I think anamorphic was the right choice. And it really, for me, the Xenomorph's face, whenever it's a close up or it's getting in any characters' faces, I love that. I think those shots are really successful and they work. There were moments for me like the crate being smashed around by a T-Rex, like Adam had said, that really don't work. Like it seems like the Xenomorph has ungodly strength compared to what we've seen in the past. But I don't entirely hate the scene. I don't think it draws me too much out, but there are moments where I'm questioning the actions and the execution of the scenes. And I think it's funny that we're finding a common thread that most scenes with the Xenomorph tend to have the most obscure viewpoints from all of us. And it seems the fandom as well. Like people either love it or they hate it, or they're just a bit confused, or it's in the middle. So but I think that what it did an amazing job with the Xenomorph. I think that the suit looks great. I do have some contentions with the upper lip. I think that's a common thing with most people. But I think the way they're shooting it, especially from my viewpoint and what I do, I'm seeing what they're doing and it's making sense to me, and it's making the most sense, and it's very interesting how they're approaching it. But I do think that scene in particular falls a bit flat from the rest of the episode, as we've said. So
To me, to me that the way it's shot, I completely agree. There are some really nice shots, but I get a feeling that it's kind of undecided sometimes. That yeah, you have those beautiful silhouettes, you have it in shadow, where the less you see of the details, the better of this particular suit, in my opinion. But then you have the other kind of shots where the creature is literally in the dropship, laying there, the suit, when the others are being evacuated, and it's just fully shown there, and it looks small, and it looks plasticky. It looks the smooth details on the arms that would be better to not be shown. They should be in shadow. So, I mean, personally, for me, this is the least my least favorite suit design overall. Not even talking about how it's behaving or shot. To me, it's not the best design for a suit, just by my personal tastes. But then we get to like how the creature acts. It's like Sarah said, isolation levels of unpredictability, and so when Wendy stabs it with the mega paper cutter, yes, they are heavy. They are super sharp. They can be maybe used as an effective tool. I'm not even going to talk about should Wendy as a synthetic be that strong or not. Let's just suppose she's a special model, $1 billion cost. Okay, uh, but then for the creature, so she stabbed it, and acid was a good amount was already coming through. That paper cutter should have already been completely wrecked, but then it's going to be used to completely slice off the head. I mean, the whole general kind of their fight, I had no issues with Wendy using the hook on it. Well, Peter Pan, crocodile, yeah, I get the themes, etc. Like, I mean, it's the inner mouth. It's small. She has the strength. Okay, I'm okay with it piercing it. The issue is we're forgetting the acid again. We see acid come out of the little mouth, and that hook stays in there. It doesn't melt away.
Yeah,
So
that's a fair
it
point.
has it has the same issue of in Alien, where the harpoon gun at the end of the scene is just suddenly stuck in there, acid proof. So those are some things that you shouldn't be kind of copying from
Get too hung up
Alien
on.
in that sense.
Well, I think
The
the oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Hunter.
Sorry.
I'll say, and the cop out is the door closes, so you don't see how she does it, right? And so the execution of it is, well, you don't need to see it, you just know she does it. But in reality, we're all thinking, okay, how?
And I like that the alien bites its own fucking tongue off. You know, when it's actually trapped and hooked.
I didn't see that. I thought she just yanked it right out.
Nope.
It bit
It goes
It bit it.
hump. And I think they talked about it in something. Was it in one of the
did.
podcasts, maybe?
Yes, in the podcast, is it the main producer? I keep on forgetting, but the person talks about how it's basically a direct reference to resurrection, and how they know, they are aware of themselves, they know they need to use their acid blood to do something to get out of a sticky situation. So that is a smart thing. I actually like that, and that it's a quick blink and you'll miss it. The thing is that just it took a while for the alien to realize that. Wendy literally flipped the alien, which from her standpoint, it's a good strategy. The creature is having traction, it's strong, it's making her life difficult there. You want to flip it like a cockroach, like a bug there, so that it can't get traction. That's good. But it's a bit humiliating for the alien itself, and when you're already flipped, it would have been good if you're smart enough to flip your tongue there and escape. So, for Hermit, I was like, when he was pierced with the tail, I was like, oh my god, are they killing him right away? No, is he a synthetic? Nope. he's just the luckiest person alive. He's the first one to survive a tail stab through the first human being. So okay.
Nope, that would be Ricky in AVPR.
Nobody remembers that film that you had him.
Yeah.
Let's be
No,
honest.
though that was the shoulder. That was the shoulder a bit, and he had the kind of the armor there. So again, I can easily imagine that this is near the kidney. So it was a lucky shot. He could have been dead, but okay, he's not. And then you have it brought into the kind of garage thing. The plan was all nice. The idea of the fight is actually quite nice.
And an
then it's
Alien 3
closed.
sort of callback as well.
Yes. It's
I wonder
quick
how
thinking.
intentional that was, though.
Maybe if the producer is referencing resurrection with some elements, the behind the scenes guys could probably be having all sorts of ideas there. So the quick thinking is nice in that sense. But then we get the fight that we do not see, and at the very end, let's say even the slicing of the neck, which shouldn't be possible with a wrecked blade. Yes, let's say that the neck isn't armored since it's a joint. Let's go with Music of the Spears lore, where the joints are easily sliced with ninjas, etc. Okay, let's go with that. But then at least show us that Wendy is really hurt. The actress's like complete acting there was very nice and shocking, and that was a nice scene where Hermit falls next to her. But we needed to see that she's actually damaged. Like we just get a little drip. We don't even see a scar. The clothes are not ripped, and we're supposed to believe, oh yeah, she's broken, and she. What is she broken from? Like that should have been done better.
That is a fair point, and I do think this is the weakest part of the entire episode. And I think it saddens me to say, because as much as I love the characters and the complexity of the characters and the other themes that have become very prevalent across all Alien, you know, you still want the alien to be a big star and treated well. And there's only so much I'm going to be like, yeah, but the violence was still fun, you know, from the previous 2 episodes. And it's kind of where I struggled with the superhero sort of interpretation of the hybrids. Like, you know, when you see her just jump down in the first episode off the cliff, I was like, I would have much preferred it if she sort of like scrambled down the cliff, you know, a little bit of a drop, reorientates herself and goes like that. So it felt a little bit more, yes, more advanced, but not quite fucking Captain America or Superman. And that was a problem like I had with Icarus. You know, it's a fun concept to have synths combating aliens, but you don't want it to go too far in the realms of the superhero, because again, tonal fucking whiplash.
While I would have liked to have seen what happened behind those doors. I didn't particularly have a problem with it myself, and I quite enjoyed some of those detail shots, like when she is pulling the alien and you see like there's a close up on its feet like sliding on the ground. I thought that was kind of interesting, and yeah, I mean it can't be very pleasant for the alien having a hook through your inner jaw, so I'm sure that was a factor in like keeping it on its back too. But like I didn't get this. I mean, the alien has had a lot of moments where it has just beasted through groups of people in this. So the idea that it was, I don't know, degraded, I can't say I agree with personally. And I think, we will see more of that alien action moving forward while this alien was killed. And, we see what's left of it in this tray there. I doubt it will be the last xenomorph we see in this series, because that
Oh,
would
of
I would
course.
have an issue with that if that were the case.
Of course
Um,
not. But you still want to see it being consistently, a threat. It doesn't. I
yeah.
don't think it feels like it with that fight with her. And I agree with you in that we don't need to see the fight behind the closed doors. But Greg is very much on point where it's like, show us some fucking consequences more than just a stream of white blood coming
I
down.
did have the same thought of like, oh shit, she got hit in the head, but there wasn't much more to it than that. It's interesting, in the earlier versions of this scene, it took place on the rooftop, in a rooftop forest or garden kind of area. So I do wonder if it was budgetary reasons that they threw it in an underground parking lot. But yeah, it
I
was.
wonder if it was at the abandoned mall that they found. I wonder if it was just one of those production changes that happened as a result of the reality that they were shooting in.
Yeah,
You
I'm
can,
I'm
potentially.
just I'm just interested into the kind of design decision, since in the previous second episode we've had a lot of gore, so they know how to do gore, of course, and they do it pretty well, and they're not afraid to show it. So I was kind of expecting, okay, and especially since Hermit, the first kind of chink through the plot armor happened, he was actually stabbed. He didn't die or anything, but he was stabbed and on the verge of death. Okay, a little consequence there. But then just for Wendy, if we saw her torn up a bit, losing a synthetic limb or something, the fight would have just felt a bit more fair in that sense. Like, oh, okay, she can kill them, but at a great cost. Like this is just
it was one-sided, is your point there, isn't it?
yes.
And that's very fair.
I do. I would like to say in this episode there were a lot of nice establishing shots. Random thing to bring up, but I really love the shot when they finish at the wreckage site. They're heading back to the island, and we see the towers as like the sun starts to rise, and it's kind of in like a sped up time lapse sort of look to it, where we see a lot of the emergency sirens going off, and there's kind of like a rock solo, like a slow guitar solo during this. You didn't like that either, Greg?
Tonal whiplash. I think that the all of the song choices on their own, I love them. I love those genres. That's not an issue. The problem is like n- on two fronts. First, yes, it's strange for Alien to have so many of them. Uh, but on a second note, so let's say I'm a newcomer who hasn't seen Alien at all. I think that even for the scenes they are portraying, some of those songs that are chosen don't kind of fit the vibe of those scenes that precede them, or if for the endings, for instance, or in the shots themselves. It's kind of like, what are you trying to tell me? What is this song trying to tell me about the atmosphere of the moment right now? It to me doesn't feel like completely compatible within the scenes themselves. But I will agree completely that the aesthetics of the interior and exteriors were gorgeous in this episode. I adored the Neverland Prodigy Lab, the insides, how they looked and how they were shot in this episodes, and the exterior. Like, I love the architecture. I can just imagine like the future Alien or Alien with Predator game having those kinds of bits and maps in there would look phenomenal. So at least on that side, they're doing a great job like establishing the visuals. So I'm kind of happy to see more of Neverland in the future, but the music choices are still jarring to me.
I wonder. I mean, why do you think that is? You know, we've had now Tool, Seether, and I believe it's Metallica
Yeah, wherever I
and
may
Black
roam.
Sabbath as well. So there's a common thread there, and I just wonder why we're going that route. It makes me question that, but I do have to go. I have to harken back to your guys' comments. I think the cinematography so far in these past few episodes has been amazing. I'm a little bit biased there, but there's some gorgeous establishing stuff, but there's also some. I think there's some amazing dreamlike sequences where they're not really dreamlike, like the scene with the person who's cleaning the hallway, which we've seen in episode 1 now. And I think that's something I'd like to definitely get into more and talk about.
It's a very interesting design of that suit, which is very nice. It's actually quite evocative of the alien itself. It's evocative of Blade Runner.
I think of the concept sketches that have been shown on social media. They call them the mold scrubbers, I believe. But yeah, just to cap off on the music choices, I've had people message me about this saying, "Oh, I don't know if this works for Alien." I'm again, this goes to maybe the punk rock nature of this show for me. I'm digging it, and I think the interlude in the beginning was part of that, and it was kind of what hit me when I saw it for the first time at SDCC was the intro and having these lyrics from Cream woven into this and just being kind of like, whoa, that is different. This show is doing something different here. And as Sizzy Bubbles in our chat has said, Hammer Magazine did a bit on Alien Earth rock solos. The director explains it. So yeah, and that's a big
It's
metal magazine. So I mean, it is a point of interest for the series, I believe, and it is doing something different for Alien. And it's one of the things I actually did like about Romulus is that it introduced a bit more electronic music elements to the score. I think sometimes a series can get too stuck in, we just do it this way, we just do it orchestral. And I like it when there's a bit more experimentation there, which we saw with Star Wars and some of their series as well. I think in Andor, they had a bit more electronic stuff thrown in there. The Mandalorian tried some new things with the music as well. So I personally like it. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, you still want it to feel alien, but this show is going for its own unique identity. And I think the music is a huge part of that for Alien Earth. And I'm always wondering what track are they going to pick next for the credits of the next episode. And I think it's a cool part of the show for me.
I think that's interesting too, because it harkens back to our points about contemporary media in the alien universe, with Ice Age. I mean, these are songs at this point are, I think about music that we still reference today from Beethoven and other pieces of work that we still listen to now. And it's harkening back to that contemporary ideology of does this make sense now? So I'm digging it. I like the heavy metal aspect of it. It doesn't take me out of the series. It's like I said, very jarring at first, but once you understand the punk rock, the heavy rock take that the show is trying to perceive, it makes sense the more and more we're getting deeper into these episodes, I think.
So Sizzy says, Hawley, I've clicked the wrong quote there. Sizzy says, Hawley says it's a celebration of what you've watched before and also throwing you into the future. And I think he'd also said in the same interview, correct me if I'm wrong, Sizzy, I'm hoping you've got it pulled up, that it wasn't something he'd planned to do for the most part. And it was just something that came about as part of the editing process and then just became a thing. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Please go and have a look for us. But I'm in very much the same boat as I continually seem to be about this show, where on the one hand, I'm like, these are fucking good songs. These are nice choices. There's thematic relevance in some of it. But then on the other hand, I'm also like, yeah, but this is pulling me out of Alien. I think it feels different. It feels massively different from them trying different musical interpretations. This isn't the electro bits of Romulus' soundtrack. This is an entirely different sort of vibe. And again, to speak to what Hunter said, with the contemporary stuff, it pulls you out a little bit. Maybe as we become used to the Hawley, the Hawley of it all, as the series go on, it stops being something that you pick up on, and then something that you start to appreciate. Sarah says, "I love the songs they've chosen, but not that they have put them in there. That this isn't a cyberpunk or dynamic series, so I have no idea why it's putting them in there." And then obviously Sarah's done other bits
Uh,
and pieces.
the thing
Ceesay with the absolute fucking attitude there. Wow, artistry. Imagine creativity. Come on, if we're gonna give us snark, elaborate.
I think it's something that is a point where we as fans can get curmudgeony about things, I think. And it's something that is good to self-reflect on, because yeah, I and yes, there have been times where I've seen an Alien movie and I'm like, this doesn't feel like Alien anymore. Like I felt that way with the prequel, so I completely understand that. The show is trying to strike a balance with that. It's not going to hit that balance for everybody, and that's okay. But to me, I can appreciate something being experimental while still hitting that those things that I'm looking for as an Alien fan. To me, it's doing it. I've heard issues from a lot of people that it's not, and but that's okay. You know, that's your experience with it, and that's also valid.
I have to kind of explain my thoughts there regarding the differences in interpretation. I'm glad that it doesn't take all of you out of it so much. And again, compared to the other contemporary references, the music choices are not the most kind of jarring there for me, but I still think they are misplaced in the sense of I'm not against trying different things. Like every Alien film has had a quite a different score, but introducing new instruments, introducing the choral aspect. And, I liked all of the soundtracks. I liked the uniqueness of the Covenant one. I liked Romulus putting in electric instruments in there. I like the rock guitar bits in Alien 3. So it's not an issue of trying something new. Uh, to me, my personal opinion about this is just because something is new doesn't automatically mean it is a good choice. New does not equal good. It's good to try new things, absolutely, especially in the Alien franchise where there's constant evolution of aspects. But and I always think you should try something new, but that doesn't mean that it'll automatically be successful. That it should be just because it's new that it's cool in that sense. To me, um, a soundtrack in a film is supposed to support the visuals, the dialogue. It's supposed to amplify effects. But when you have like a song, specific songs that are up there in front of your face, and songs with lyrics that are being sung, that is very. It takes attention away. And regarding the whole show, yes, it's in theme with the whole show. With the whole show, for now, at least, of these 3 episodes we've seen, it's very referential to present media. A lot of references to modern day media, the late 20th century media. That's what the show is. The show likes, and it's going in that direction. Okay, within its own consistency, that's what it's doing. For me, that feels just very different from all of the 7 entries that have been doing things before in that sense.
Well, it's interesting
That's
that
just
you also
my
bring up Elliot Goldenthal's Alien 3 score, because recently we watched the Alien 3 Legacy cut, and that was the piece of music that was removed by the people that worked on it, was that guitar bit in the score. So there has been a resistance to that sort of thing even before this, I would say.
exactly.
And with the source music, I think it's fitting that they save that for the end of the series, and it kind of is like it it's kind of a primer for the next sequence. Honestly, it makes me think of weird reference here, Alan Wake, where it would like end the chapter with an interesting piece of source music that would make you think about what you just went through. It might be a bit more jarring for me if they just threw source music throughout the whole episode. I think I would be more resistant to that. But for me anyway, it's an interesting take. Yes, I remember the first time I saw the first episode, I was like, "Whoa,
Mhm.
hard rock track at the end? That's really okay." But like I'm into it now, so I am curious to see where it goes, and it's certainly become, I think, an effective talking point for people to discuss what the series.
Oh, the show is not one for talking points. Let's be honest here, Adam. It is. Many elements are causing discussion, and to some extent, it's also, yeah, we also have to think that everything's doesn't feel alien. until it is, and we're used to it. So, imagine Alien 3's aesthetic. It does not align with Alien or Aliens until you become used to it, and then it's like, oh, yeah, it's just a different aspect. It's a different element of this world. So I enjoy it, but I also find it really fucking weird and a tonal thing there.
I think one thing, the last thing I want to bring up is, as many of us are going to do, we're going to rewatch this series and really dissect it more. And I wonder, once we have the full catalog of episodes, how cohesive it's going to be going back and watching it.
Overall context is going to play a huge part in, I would like to think, it would play a huge part in people being able to revisit it when it's all complete and said and done, and you can understand it in the context of a finished, complete picture. But again, that's dependent on people having that ability to go back and rewatch it and reevaluate it without being stuck in their opinions of the early impressions.
So the episode ends on a really intriguing bit after they plug Wendy back in. She's being kind of recovered, recharged, whatever's going on there. And her brother is being operated on. I assume the alien tail maybe pierced his lung. So
I had a different interpretation of that.
Okay.
But it makes sense. I didn't cotton on to him being stabbed through the lung. I had initially been like, oh, is the acid being that toxic? Because he throws up. I was like, is the acid being that toxic, and is it damaging his internals due to the inhalation of the acid? But it being much simpler as just being stabbed through the fucking
whatever the reason, they remove one of his lungs, I assume replacing it with a synthetic component, so he'll be partially minimally cyborg now, I suppose.
Which is also going to make him be able to have input in this entire message of the show, which is, what is it to be human, what's too much machine in a human body, and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was I don't think that happens in the scripts we have. So I think it makes him become important to this entire arc going forwards, and I think it was a really good choice.
But his lung must have not been too damaged, because they recover it and put it in a tank and use it as a chest burster host, it would appear. Casper brings up in our Patreon chat, do you think they stole his lung, or was it actually damaged? I was thinking about that question. I'm not sure. That is a good question. But yeah, eventually Wendy wakes up. Dame Sylvia is kind of asleep next to her as she recovers at this point, and she is having a hard time. She kind of wanders the halls of the research facility on her own, and Kirsch, as well as who's the science one, Aaron?
Arthur?
No, the science-minded one of the Lost Boys.
Don't ask me for names.
Toodles, that's right.
Curly and Toodles.
So Kirsch is working with Toodles and Nibs in terms of dissecting a xenomorph egg. And that was kind of interesting, because in a lot of the EU, the eggs are acid-blooded as well if you burn them apart, but this one, they just kind of cut right through it.
It didn't break the and for the start, when he's just sawing the shell, he doesn't break the internal membrane, which was an interesting take on the structure of the egg. This layer that then the facehugger could see out of. I was like, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, you see him moving around in there. He just cuts it open, yanks it out. It is not a happy camper. And Wendy is hearing all this as if, again, it seems like she has some sort of ability to tap into the xenomorph hive mind here. And so she's really suffering as they are cutting this thing up. And here was a major point of difference, I would say, from Romulus in the prequels, is they extract a embryo. So it's not the Plagiarius praepotens in this interpretation. It is a Xenotadpole, which they release in the tank, and it makes its way inside the lung, which I think we can imagine what might happen later because of that.
I could hear Eric while I was watching that. I could hear Eric sort of cheering from wherever the fuck he is down south, because Eric famously does not like that interpretation. And obviously, it makes sense. It's fine. It's fine as another interpretation, a classic interpretation. But again, it's another one of those things where this exists outside of the direction that the films have gone, re-emphasizing that separate continuity. I thought the tadpole looked fucking stupid though. I really did not like I like the concept. I think it's cool, we'll take the embryo. And then when they were put it in the thing with the lung, initially I was like, oh, are they going the dummy route? Which is a thing I really like from the comics, where it's like these cloned meat sacks with no head, no arms, no legs. It's just this artificially kept alive bag of meat that they put embryos in, and they develop in there and then burst out and all that sort of stuff. So initially I was like, oh, is that one of those? But then when it was a lung, then the little tadpole embryo just went and swum into the lung. I was like, but that's not how that works. It just sort of
Yep.
nestles itself in between. So this is another one of those things where Hawley's just going, fuck it. We'll do our own thing. This is alien adjacent. But it was an interesting concept. I liked the dissection. I do like, in vague terms, the whole concept of just, developing it in something that isn't a human or isn't an animal or isn't alive. But the tadpole just looks silly to me.
There's also a moment where Boy Cavalier walks into the lab, is looking around, and he starts to make the common mistake of putting his face too close to the egg, and Kirsch gets him out of there quickly, and they establish, okay, no one's going in or out of here who isn't synthetic. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses forward as well.
Regarding those final scenes with the creatures, a lot of interesting elements, some a bit iffy. Let's start with the positives. One of the best effects, practical effects regarding the creatures from the show, in my opinion, is the egg when it's opening. That texture inside, that almost looks as good as in Alien. It's getting close to that, and that is by far the best effect there for me. Steve Patterson says, definitely my favorite episode yet. Loving the classic call out to the facehugger having an embryo rather than the black goo. I had a smile from ear to ear when I saw that. The embryo thing is interesting because I was always a fan of that old interpretation. I'm not too big of a fan of the black goo, etc. Though with all of the shenanigans about the prequels, even though I have been souring on them these past few years, that aspect with the facehuggers having a black goo type of thing, I was actually getting used to it. Why? For a multitude of reasons. First, it kind of explains the immunity response, that something can grow inside you and your immune system doesn't go haywire. Alex White did a good job of thinking about that. How do you get the creature in the chest cavity where it is shown in Alien and other media? Again, if it's just a virus that seeps through, it tells the body where to build it. It can build it anywhere. Okay. And taking with traits, etc. With an embryo, though, you have a few other limitations. But I kind of, in recent years, I've kind of made peace with it, that it doesn't have to be like the virus pathogen thing. It can still be an embryo, because guess what? Embryos are microscopic. That's the one. I like the tadpole idea. I like the bringing back to the embryo, but that thing is huge. That thing is huge as like the beginning stage. Embryos are microscopic. So, and of course, in animal reproduction, it's carried. The reproductive gametes are carried in fluids. So Romulus made a lot of sense to me. Whether you think it is pathogen or an embryo, like, it should still be in fluid form, injected. Something super small that grows quickly. Something as big as this, again, it doesn't break anything, but it's a bit too much again. I like tadpoles, generally how funky they are. I don't know if this also resembles some beginning stages of some fish, but I like that it's translucid. It looks interesting, but at the same time, I'm at two minds about it. Like Aaron says, it looks silly as well. At the same time, people are going up crazy, like all over the forums and Discord, thinking, "Oh no, it's the same. Oh, I've seen some black fluid in the facehugger. Oh, it still has black goo." It's not a reference to the black goo. Most of the creature has no black substance at all. I think it's just like a few gooey effects there. Basically, let's remember that in Alien, most of the insides were from the calamari, fish, oysters, etc. That were grayish and darkish. It's probably a reference to that. If they wanted to go the black goo route, they would have. This is obviously their own thing. Not a huge bad deal, etc. I do find it interesting. Where shall they take it next? I like what Aaron says, that we are having like in an organ, those kind of references to the comics. I'm not too happy about the position since it's not adjacent to Alien 3, but I'm okay with it. It wasn't the biggest kind of deal breaker there for me. The facehugger effect, the puppet was a bit stiff for me again,
I
but the
thought
eggs
it
looked
looked.
better.
I thought the facehugger looked better here than it had in the previous 2 episodes as well. I thought it was shot a lot better in this episode. I really like this whole thing of Wendy actually being able to tap into the hive mind. I know it's been a thing that some people have been a bit controversial about, but I've always enjoyed the alien having the ability to influence its hosts. I can't remember if I talked about this in the last episode or not, but whether it's something like pheromones enticing you in to see the egg, or the RPG has this really cool thing where one of the attacks, I think, is the human character gets mesmerized by the alien and can't move or can't do anything, and I love that element of it. And I know it's not quite the same here, but just Wendy having this connection to the alien or ability to sort of tap into the hive mind, maybe that's our interpretation of the event so far. But I think that's really fascinating. And it can potentially be horrendous as a idea and as execution. Do I want to know that alien over there thinks his name's Joe and is really ticked off with this other guy? No, I don't. But them having some ability to interpret what the alien is doing, and for her to be so affected by the egg and the facehuggers sort of pain and be drawn to it, specifically be drawn to it, is something I find much more interesting because it speaks to that alluring of things.
It was strange that she was overwhelmed by them. That again, I'm not against that, because we don't know if it's like full on telepathic magical, or is it more in the sense of her altered hearing and she can hear frequencies that the creatures are creating. We don't know yet. The communication will be very, very interesting to see how it develops in future episodes. Will they go too far or won't they? But some connection there, some possible of her tapping into their communication. I'm not completely against that. For now, I am on board to see. It's interesting that it just overwhelmed her and she went unconscious because of that. So I'm interested to see where they go with it.
I also would just like to say I found the ending fucking hilarious. Because of Wendy collapsing on the floor. We then cut to the whole thing with the chest burster. Then we cut to Wendy also still being on the floor in pain. So my internal continuity consistency was like, oh, so Kirsch just stepped around her to go and do his thing in the lab and just left her lying there on the floor. I thought that was funny.
I forgot that.
I think we were seeing a stylistic time jump. They're probably just very focused on what they're doing, and in a bit they're like, "Oh, she's on the board. We better get her some help."
It was funny to me though. But something just want to quickly mention, I think we're probably about ready to wrap up here. But something I did want to mention was the eggs closing back up. We see, I think, is it at the end of the last episode, it's starting to react to Hermit. But in this one, we and start to open, but then it goes to it being closed. But in this one, we very deliberately see, the egg starting to open when Boy sticks his face in there, and then close when he's gone away. And I had forgot that Resurrection showed them closing. When he shoots the grenade up and the egg swallows the fucking grenade. It's stupid as fuck. But I'd forgot Resurrection showed that capability. And I actually think it's a really cool concept, because then it means that the facehugger can go back to being protected within the egg and isn't wasted and has to go and venture out and, potentially waste the seed or whatever. So I thought that was a really nice little bit of alien biology in here.
That was a nice reference. That definitely was an interesting callback. Regarding the telepathy there, yeah, Casper says Harp and Cassandra from Dark Descent are Wendy's family. They had the same ability, as a kind of interesting possible fan theory as to
Yeah.
why this is it. That would be interesting. But the
So
eggs are okay by me to be able to close like that. It's a logical function, doesn't break anything
oh, absolutely
too
not.
much. So that's nice to see.
Cool. Shall we wrap up then, gentlemen? Yep, getting nods. Okay, Hunter. Any final thoughts before we jet off?
No, I wanted to say, I mean, I'll make it really quick, but I mean, going back to the talking points we just discussed, when Boy Cavalier approaches the eggs and they start to open and Kirsch pulls them away, again, that I think harkens back to smart people make stupid decisions, and I think that was a nice little callback to earlier in the episode. When it comes to the egg sequence, I'm on the fence because, again, the practical sense of what we're seeing really is impressive. I like what they're doing with the effects. These are easily the best looking eggs so far in the show. It does raise a lot of biological questions, and I'm not going to judge it too fully, as we need to see how this plays out in the further episodes once we see what comes out of the lung and how that executes. I've made it very clear in the past I'm not a huge fan of the prequels. I have a lot of disagreements with them, so I'm glad that we didn't go with the black goo theory and we have the tadpole. But I do agree. I think the tadpole is a bit disruptive in its design. I don't know how I quite feel about that. I don't know if the execution of that was properly done, but I am here to see how this plays out, and I'm interested in where we will go in episode 4.
Greg, quick final thoughts.
So, final thoughts. Yep, the show is a lot better when there aren't too many references to contemporary media. There was no Sid the Sloth, there was no Baroque party, there was no that. Just focus on characters, a bit of creature action and creature dissection. Love that. It was fun. Most of the episode was pretty good. I enjoyed it overall. Again, Morrow's performance is the standout, but other performances were also a lot stronger. And I'm finally really happy and interested to see where it goes. So, actual excitement for episode 4. That is something that I'm glad to be feeling. So, let's see where it goes.
Adam.
Yeah, while this continues kind of a slow burn build that we've had so far, it really shows some things start to go in motion that will come to a point pretty soon, I would imagine. I think it was the strongest episode yet. I really enjoyed it. From a stylistic perspective, from a character development perspective, and from a creature effects perspective, I thought the episode was fantastic. So show is really doing it for me so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next one. It's, again, I'm still getting used to Alien in this weekly format, and it's really cool. I even talked to a friend about it who's also really enjoying the show, and I said, I wish it was one of those series where they just drop it all at once and we can just binge it. And he's like, yeah, I used to feel that way, but now I like it where we have a week to like decompress and like talk about things and theorize about what's coming up next. So it's yeah, it's an interesting way to have alien media, and I'm enjoying it.
And it's a classic way to have media. You know, I think I mentioned in the last episode about it being very equivalent to reading a comic book series, you know, an issue at a time. And I like that because it is, as you say, it gives us a chance to digest, it gives us a chance to theorize, it gives us a chance to discuss. And that's always more fun as a fan. You know, it is more fun to theorize, to hypothesize, to see how your interpretations stand up as the series progresses. And yes, it's still a little bit different to fucking watching a season of Stargate, because it is still, you know, an entire arc that is split over the 8 episodes. But it is still fun, and I enjoy having this, even if I'm not I'm still not entirely on board with the series, you know, it is still fun being able to have this experience that we've never really got to have as Alien fans overall. So yeah, not completely on board with it. Still think it's the best episode we've got. I do think it's a little unfair because in this day and age, you know, to go back to Stargate, to go back to Star Trek, they had 20 fucking episode seasons. They had 28 episode seasons where they got to have a rough 1 or 2 episodes. They got 3 seasons to find their feet, you know, before they got 7 years in total. That was television back in the day. Nowadays, we're lucky if we get 2-3 seasons. So it's unfair to Noah, and I think to the show, in that, yes, we're like, oh, the first 2 episodes were a bit fucking rough in these regards, and blah, 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 blah. They're pilot episodes. Every fucking pilot episode is rough in some regards because they don't know what they're doing fully yet. And I think that's hard for us as a modern audience to necessarily grasp these days because of the way television's kind of shot itself in the foot in regards to they're not getting as much time to do things. But I'm interested. Like I said, I'm keen for next week, and that's the important thing. As long as at the end of each episode I'm interested in next week. I want to know where they're going. It's succeeding in my books. So yeah, that's it. Anything else to address, Adam? Anything you want to bring up?
No, I think, and yeah, it's interesting to see how television has changed from the days of Stargate in terms of those really longer, drawn out seasons that maybe had more filler episodes to now bigger budget, shorter seasons. They have to make sure all the episodes are big and impressive and keep people watching. With this one, I've heard it described as kind of an 8-hour movie among some that have been lucky enough to review the whole season. So I am, again, curious as to how it will all cohesively feel once we get to the end of it. But yeah, that's it for us for episode 3, Metamorphosis. And we will be doing this again weekly after we watch episode 4 next week. Aaron, did you just want me to do the sign off here?
No, before we go, so just a few comments recently. Zombie fan Dan on our Spotify says, as always, this is to our previous episode, as always, a great listen. Keep up the good work. Oh, Bruno's giving us some jive here. I love you guys, but you go a bit far with the nitpicking in this episode. Were we too nitpicky last episode? I think we're always nitpicky, and I think that's the territory of being science fiction fans, stereotyping us. But I do think, yeah, that's always going to be the case. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's always going to happen. A bunch of comments on YouTube as well, and we're very much appreciating it. Some insults on YouTube as well. We love it all. So thank you, everybody. As always, feel free to reach out to us at podcast@AvP Galaxy. Please do leave us reviews on iTunes, leave us comments on Spotify, and share our content if you like it. If you have friends out there who are also interested in these things or are liking the show, share it with them. It's very helpful to us. Thank you to our patrons. I know we're recording at a very odd fucking time right now, but thank you to the people who've come and joined us, who have joined us on their days off. You know, Steve in there, I think he said it was his day off, and he's come to join us and listen to us talk Alien for 2 hours. Who says, great review, guys, can't wait for the next one. Over to you, Adam.
So again, thank you to our supporters in the chat. It's always great to engage with a bit of a live audience on some of these as well. It's been a cool feature to have on here. But if you'd like to keep up with all the latest reporting on the franchises, and there is a lot of it these days, more than we've ever been used to, head on over to our main hub of activity, our website, avpgalaxy.net. We are also on all the major social channels: Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and now TikTok. As well as if you'd like to engage in some of the newer format discussion groups, we also have a group on Discord, as well as, I guess Steam isn't too new, but we do have a Steam group as well if you're more interested in the gaming side of things.
Hunter, do you want to talk about the TikTok a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So, as Adam has said, we just started a TikTok, which will be in correlation to our Instagram by most accounts. We'll be hopefully posting some highlights from some newer episodes, older episodes, a little bit of everything. But anything that we post news wise via our Instagram or Facebook usually will be on the TikTok as well. If you enjoy that format, feel free to repost or comment on those videos, letting us know how we can improve that or some things that you would like to see. Yeah, I look forward to seeing what we can do with this format, and maybe some new followers and fans will find us that way.
And also just a quick thank you to Sarah as well, because she has been helping us find snippets for Hunter to Steal for the TikTok and the small form stuff. So thank you very much, Sarah. We always appreciate help from the community in doing what we do.
And I haven't spent too much time on TikTok. I am doing so a little bit more now, and that algorithm, it sure hits. Like, it knows what you want to see. So it has been interesting seeing a lot of the Alien and Predator and AvP videos and other posts there.
Cool. Well, thank you everybody for watching or listening. Sorry. This has been Corporal Hicks.
RidgeTop
Still collating.
XenoPlays.
Guarding the omelets.